So our plan is still to go till Tuesday, inclusive of Tuesday. That still makes sense to everyone? For everyone? Getting dicey? We'll see. We're thinning out here. We'll see.
Yeah.
Silver.
Awesome.
Good, I'm giving share now. You can come good if not.
30.4 average. Yeah.
Yep.
Makes it.
Oh.
Okay. No coffee, rough time, base feeling.
Nice.
It says no coffee, rough times.
We gotta bring her over.
Sometime made emergency run
BYOC.
to the Grom.
Fiona.
Hey,
Fiona.
Fiona.
I can't come from you to share now. Come? Yeah. I can't hear you. Hello? Hello. Okay. Stealth mode's going on.
Is that okay?
Okay, we're holding the Dov Zion. Yes. Before we get to Dov Zion, Ralph, we do have our Sunday morning pop quiz ritual. I hope. Here you go. So, yes, here we go. Where do we talk about that there are, just as there are ashmuros in heaven, there are ashmuros down here on earth, meaning that there are, up in heaven there are watches that change for the malachim, they change guard, and down here there are also different segments to the, it's nighttime, that you can detect. Where was that?
Different quarters.
Where was that? Well, it's thirds.
Thirds?
We have machlokas. We actually have machlokas later on about if there's 3 or 4 of them. But where we discussed the simanim, we only had 3 of them. Where was that? Got your hand up, you got it? Put your hand up, you got it? Where do we say you got it? You got it? Yes, what? Gimel. Of Gimel. Right, because that was the lion. The lion, Hashem roars like a lion 3 times at those 3 junctures. And the simanim we had down here was the donkey, the dogs, and the Ishames, Paris, and Valentina, Mishnah Imo. Good, very good. Okay, where did we see? Where do we see the machlokas? Let's talk about the siman. We later on went on to ask about the next Amud. Just finished the thought. If there were 3 or 4, right? There's machlokas in Rav Dassan and Rabbi. Rabbi says there are 4. Rav Dassan says there are 3. Watches in the night. And that brought us to a topic of, I'll ask you another one. Okay, so one of the proofs of that, let's see if you can remember it. It's on Daf, if you can remember this. This is also on Daf Gimel. One of the proofs that Rabbi brought that there were 4, not 3 Ashmuros, was because, do you remember what it was? Something happened at midnight. That what happened at midnight? David we get up at midnight, and he got up. He preceded by ashmuros, by multiple watches. So that was a proof. Actually, of ashmuros must be 2 of them. Right. So 2 before, 2 afterwards. And if you remember, it's just getting a little more familiar with this topic since we're here already this deep. Rav Nassan objected and said, "No. How do you? This is a little involved. Why does it say ashmuros plural if there's only 3 of them and he's getting up at midnight?" He said, you remember? He said, because David Melech got up at midnight, regular kings got up 2 hours, in the 3rd hour, 2 hours after sunrise, so 6 hours for the second half of the night, plus 2 hours of the morning, those are all times that adds up to 8, which is 2 ashmurot, each one being 4 hours long. And Ravashi said, no, ashmurot can be plural because 1.5 is also plural. Okay, that was that. Anyways, that took us. Let's review that, I guess. Okay, where do we see 3 shitas about? Same page, same dot. Okay. Where do we see that you better seal up? Okay, sorry, like this. Where do we see that that you can see the zikin around your bed by sprinkling ashes around your bed? Where do we see that? You can see chicken feet in the morning. Where was that? Put your hands up, think, what daf do you see? Sprinkle ashes on your bed, you'll see the chicken feet in the morning from the mazikin. That was daf. That was daf. the simon we have for it was that Zera was running with a stick to chase away the mazikin. We're behind the base of Medrash, looking for Hashem's tefillin, because that's where Hashem's to be found. So it's complicated, but there are many elements in Davav. But the mazikin you're trying to chase away is because the mazikin you learn on Davav, that they're all around us, 1,000 on our left, 1,000 on our right, surrounding us like a rim around a vine. You can see them, but they'll take it. If you want to see them, you can sprinkle your ashes around your bed, or you could put the second generation black cat, mother of a mother, firstborn I should say, mother of a mother, take its placenta, grind it up, put it in your eye, and then you'll see them like baby or mine. But if you do, be careful, because they can get you, so you better put their leftovers inside a metal pipe. Metal pipe. Okay, where do we see the phrase lo hein v'lo scharan? I don't like them, and I don't like their reward. Either them or their reward. Where do we see that? Where was that talking about? Lo hein v'lo scharan? That was three stories. That two of them were Yochanan visiting people, and they said, "Are you enjoying your suffering?" And they said, "Lo hein v'lo scharan." Either them or their reward. That was on Daf. Hey, that's right. And the big hint of that, of course, Rabbi Yochanan was doing the thing, but he was also suffering. That the suffering of the Rabbi Yochanan and the Simon is the suffering that they were enduring of the Yisur Shel Ahava. That was the topic of Yisur Shel Ahava. We also have the famous statement there that a person, that the guy in jail can't free himself from being in jail. Because Rabbi Yochanan was, when he was sick, he couldn't get outside. He did to some visit him. I forgot who was that who visited him? I forgot. Rav Chanina took him out. Okay, good. What about where do we see that you this is more tricky. Where do you see that you're not allowed to do something which makes people suspect you of meeting a harlot? Where do we see you're not allowed to do something that makes people suspect you? In this case, it was suspect of meeting, having a rendezvous with the harlot.
Tough base.
Wrong.
No. Gimel.
Daf Gimel, right? Because the Simon, what was the story there?
It
That was
was
the story of a ruin. You can't go to a ruin. One of the three reasons was that Mitnei Chashad. What Daf was that one? That was Daf Gimel, because there were 3 camels in a ruin. In the ruin over there. Right. Okay, very good. Good. So now we're on Daf Zion. Yes. Okay, so Daf Zion over here. Recording over here. I'm so unrecognizable that cups of coffee, even my fingerprint reader can't recognize me. Okay, we're on Daf Zion, Amud Aleph. We have a string of statements. Am Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi, but I told you that the overarching theme here, the daf, is Hashem's Hamhaga, how Hashem relates to the world, which is a follow-on of where Hashem is to be found. That was on daf Vav. So, not perfectly clear exactly the connection between the previous statements of this one, but here we are on line 33, and it's the 2 dots there. It says V'am Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi. Another statement. Tova mardus achas belibo shel adam yos merkam malkios. Which means, I'll translate dramatically, it's more important and more effective for a person to have a change of heart and recognize his wrong ways. That's more effective in terms of changing his behavior than some external force, smacking him multiple times. I'll translate literally for you. That's what the point is. The literal translation is Tova mardus achas belibo shel adam. It's better one internal rebellion in his heart, change of heart, I would call it. His heart rebels from the way it was going. That's more effective in changing him, and the lasting change. Mekama malkios, more effective than being, malchus lashed multiple times with a strap. Malchus is a punishment that you give. Well, I assume the reference here is simply that you give malchus mardus, a person who's rebellious and from the Rabbanans, already to bring him back into line, he gets lashes. There's also a Doraisa punishment of Malkos when a person breaks the Torah, but I think it's referencing the rabbis, this is the tool to bring people back into line, and the point is, it's much more effective if people would just have a change of heart rather than us externally beating them up. It's much less effective in terms of rehabilitating them. So what's the proof for that? So because the pasuk says, this is a pasuk in Hosea, but Hashem is saying essentially that since you're bad, I'm going to abandon you. And the response of the Jews then to this, it says Hashem will essentially calls them suffering. That's the malkios, right? This external thing, and therefore their response, however, is the ridfa es me'aveha. They would pursue after their paramours, I guess is the translation, meaning that it's metaphorical. That Hashem is having a relationship with the people, Hashem is the husband, the people is the wife, and the wife, instead of returning to Hashem, who chastises them, they run to their other paramour, like
lovers.
But it means paramour.
Lovers.
Yeah, lovers, but it means the other lover, like parallel, or more than love. Means it's instead of returning to Hashem, they return to their adulterous lovers. Let's call it. It's meaning in the context. It means they turn to Avodah Zarah essentially. It turns to Avodah Zarah to solve their problems. That it's returning to Hashem, but that doesn't work for them. And eventually, the Gomer, the pasuk continues on, in the final result, since they don't get saved by their alternate lovers, then va'amra elcha va'shuva el ishi harishon. Then the Jewish people will say, you know what? I'm going to go back to my original husband. Ki tov li az me'ata. It was a lot better then than it is now. So eventually, the point is Hashem chastising them, sort of ineffective. And they, instead of going back to him, they run further away from him and try to take refuge in an alternate, in this case it's Avodah Zarah, like an alternate lover, if you will. But ultimately they say, you know what, they have a change of heart, that's a mardus in their lave, in their heart, and say, it was better, this is not working out very well, I want to go back to how it was before, and that's the tshuva process. So the proof text is, ultimately what affects the tshuva isn't Hashem chastising externally, but the internal response of realizing this is not good for me. I always emphasize in the vidui that we say on Yom Kippur, the punchline, if you will, the most important point is the v'lo shava lanu, it wasn't worth it. That's we did lots of things, but the hakara, the moment that the penny drops, is when you say it just wasn't worth it. That's this point here. The lo shava lanu is that they realized it was Vashuv el Ishi Arishon, I'll go back to Hashem, Ki tov li az me'ata, was better. With all my shenanigans, I'm not better off, I'm worse off, I better go back to how it was before. So that's the proof text. For Rish Lakish says, not just better than a few external, floggings, Amar Yosim and Mea Malkios. It's better than 100 times getting flogged from the outside. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, this is a different pasuk altogether. But it says, Teichas Ga'ara v'Mevin. Rashi goes out of his way at length here to explain that Teichas here means humility, means the noun, as opposed to some sort of verb. So, Teichas Ga'ara v'Mevin, you'll find humility from reproof in the one who's understanding, mehakos ksil mea, more than in the fool having been, smacked 100 times. It's Mishle, right? So it's a little poetic in its structure, but the point, basically, of the way that the Gemara here is reading the verse is that you'll find humility from internal chastisement in the maven, and one who gets it, rather than the person who gets hit 100 times is the fool. Now, I don't think the pshat is. We're saying in one person, there's two options, so to speak. There's the external and the internal stimulus to get him to do tshuva. And in that one person, we're saying he's much better off having some sort of internal response than a whole lot of external stimulus. It's much less effective. So we have to read the pasuk then, I think, is that when you're talking about finding the humility from chastisement in the maven, you mean in the maven components of him, so to speak. In other words, like, every person is like a maven and a ksil, both a wise person and a fool. It's both. But the person, if he is in his ksil mode, so you can hit him 100 times, he's not responsive. But if he's in his maven mode, if you will, so then if he's a little, self, what's the word? Self-critical, that's not what I want, but introspective. If he's a little introspective and realizes that this is, I need to change my ways, that part of him is where he is humbled and changes. So that's what the pasuk should be read. I think that Teichas Ga'ara b'Maven, you'll find humility because of the Ga'ara. We had that pasuk, we had that one before. La'olam. One second. Oh no, never mind. Okay, never mind that. So that's the way to read the pasuk then. That if a person looks into his heart, so to speak, and is receptive to that self-critical look, then he will be humble. Much more so than if he just goes about his foolish ways as before and gets hit many times. That's the maven, his heart, so to speak, where understanding part of him versus the thick-skinned fool that a person can be in that mode also, the rebellious mode. That's the memory here.
Does this follow on what Rabbi Yehoshua said in the previous shir, that when he was going to do something to his neighbor and
it does. Listen, it comes right after.
Right after.
But I don't know if it's connected. And it's certainly connected in terms of sequence. The previous story was we had Shuma Levi who was planning to nuke his neighbor with the chicken, and then said, "Oh, now you see from this two things. First, we see it's not love arach, it's not the right thing to do to use Hashem's kochos to blast people, and second of all, it's bad for the tzaddik to be involved in being ma'anish people. Gam anosh l'tzadik lo tov." Fine.
He also
and that was just 2 lines ago, 3 lines ago. But still, I don't. So maybe you will see a connection, and maybe it's there. But I'm not connecting them.
Well, okay. Well, what I'm saying is that he saw that tshuva comes from within himself.
Yeah, so I'm not disagreeing with you. The reason I'm not connecting them isn't because I don't necessarily agree. It's because you don't see the other side of the story.
Oh.
No, I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just telling you. I didn't present it that way, and I'm still not presenting it that way because we're saying a statement which is. It's more. This is a super important statement in terms of chinuch, right? It's saying that the change, the old joke, how many? What's the joke? How many psychologists to take to change a light bulb?
One.
Just one. The last one to change itself, right? So that's the story here. The story is that you can beat a guy to a pulp, but until he finally gets it and he resolves to change, he doesn't change at all. That's the point. You might have kill him 100 times, but it's nothing. So I don't see that story being that principle being illustrated by the story of Rabbi and Levi. That's why I'm not connecting them. But maybe they are connected loosely or more than that. I don't know. One thing's for sure, it's a super important, a super duper important point in terms of chinuch, that the role of the mechanech is to, or the parents who as the mechanech, is to get the student or child to get it for himself to understand what he's doing wrong. Beating him up doesn't help him. That's the point. Or helps very little, right? It just prevents him from getting worse. Maybe helps the parent. Well, it does habituate a child to like a dog knows he doesn't want to get hit again, so you get hemmed in. But that's not going to change the person. The role of a mechanech the role of a parent, if you ask me, to be merakezet to one point. What you're trying to do is teach your child to make good decisions, right? That's what it boils down to. You're not always going to be there to beat him up. So as soon as your stick is away from him, then he'll go about his merry way. What you're trying to do is teach the kid right and wrong, so he can make good. So he's able to make good life decisions. So if his heart is recognizing it and he's penitent for himself, then he's going to make good decisions in life. Otherwise, he just basically it's a temporary fix. better than nothing maybe, but it's temporary, which is the word in is a mitzvah of tochacha, right? To lochiach is to reprove. It's a mitzvah, it's a chiyuv. But the actual word literally, which means to reprove, but the word to prove is something I don't know if that's how linguistically connected that is or not. Maybe just coincidental. I don't know. But to give someone reproof happens, or maybe not happens in Hebrew. Tochacha lochiach is to prove. To prove something. Lochiach means I'll prove it to you, so to speak. And the point there, I don't know if the English reproof, I'm not discussing it, I don't know how it's connected, but in Hebrew I do know it's connected. The point is that you reproof isn't saying you did something wrong. That's not very effective. Because when's the last time you told somebody they did something wrong and they said, oh, then I won't do it again. That's not how it works. You have to show them why it's wrong. You have to show them why this is counterproductive, what's not in their interest, and then they get it and then they change. To say to someone, I'm going to tell you why you did something wrong, they're never going to listen. That their first reaction is to self-preservation. You know? People are very committed to believing that they're good, deeply committed to that. And if you tell someone that they're not good, they immediately respond by saying, well, yes, I am. And I'll tell you why. Because you didn't understand me, you don't get me, you don't see me. So that's not useful. Tochacha, which is a mitzvah, requires to be told in a way that the person will receive it. And in fact, there's no mitzvah to give tochacha if you won't receive it. But how do you know he won't receive it? When he punches in the nose? That's clearly indicates that he's not going to listen to you. But the point is, the way to go about tochacha properly is to not say, I'm judging you, I'm telling you that they're wrong, but say, don't you see every time that you do X, the consequences are Y, and you don't want those consequences, so it's in your own interest to stop doing X. That is how tochacha is supposed to work. Maybe with a predicate of, because I care about you, I'm talking to you, not because I'm trying to make you feel stupid. That's a separate issue of the person believing that they're going to get your interest.
Does that fit with teaching through example?
Also, I think, sure, it's consistent with teaching an example. But here I'm just thinking, tochacha, you see a guy in the street and he's just doing something, I don't know, he's doing something wrong. So to say, hey, you're doing something wrong is not effective. To show the guy, to prove to him why it's not in his interest, because he doesn't want the consequence of that action, will be effective. Even if he'll say no to you, when he walks away, makes a mental note, I shouldn't do that again, right? He won't admit he did something wrong to you, maybe, but to himself. So that's it, you have to show why someone's activities are unaffected. That's how tochacha works. So that's this point here. That just beating the guy up verbally doesn't do anything, or very little. But if he has a change of heart, that's Lashon, the original Lashon, Tova Mardus Achas Belibo, if in his heart he says, oh gosh, every time I yell at my kid, afterwards I feel terrible about it, and the relationship gets worse, so I remind myself, stop doing that, then there's a change. Otherwise, people saying, you shouldn't yell at your kid, doesn't do anything. It makes the person want to yell at him, doesn't do that too. So that's it. And that's it. On the end of the day, look, everyone suffers the consequences or enjoys whatever the consequences of their own actions. So if you're being honest and you're forcing them to do something they don't want to do, then this doesn't help them any. It doesn't help them. They're not getting a reward or punishment for you hitting them with a stick. And if the only reason that person isn't doing the bear is not getting hit by a stick, he doesn't want to get hit by a stick, there's no reward in that. Maybe you're saving from punishments, but that's not much, right? So the point is you have to. I discussed this at length. We learned in the Mishnah. None of you here came up. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos is the Mishnah, very first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, when it says that the Anshe Knesset Gedola said that the Hamidu Talmidim Parve, you should stand up many students. So the question is, like it's a funny lashon, stand them up. Why? Because I mean stand them up. So we said that you have to stand on the point of the Rebbe is to stand up students on their own 2 feet, that they can be independent. That's the point of Chinuchis. That famous story of Alosacha, that you're mechanech in the inauguration of the candles, that they have to light on their own, that they'll be able to stand on their own. The flame should be dependent on our own. I mean, there's much to talk about here, but all this point, which is just said in passing almost, is like such a heavy-duty, important point in terms of one's personal development and one's chinuch of his children and so on, that it's much, at least 100 times more effective, for the person to recognize in themselves what they're doing is bad and want to change, than by just clobbering them from the outside. That's all it has to say. Good. Fine. So line 35, a new story here. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi. Shlosha Devarim Bikesh Moshe Milifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are 3 things that Moshe requested from Hashem, then Nasan Lo, and Hashem gave them to him. So I think the way to go about this little piece of Gemara is just to read you the psukim and the Chumash first, or actually a lot of them. We're making drushes and stuff, so I'll read it to you in one piece. So here's the story. The story is in Kisisa, after the Chet of the Egel, so Moshe intercedes on behalf of the Jewish people, and like when Hashem is, Moshe starts having a discussion with him, he's concerned at first about who will accompany the Jewish people through their travels. Will be a Malach, will be Hashem himself. That's how it starts. But then when Moshe starts seeing that Hashem is responsive to him, he starts making additional requests, and that's these three requests here. So there's the story. It says, V'yomar Moshe al Hashem, Rei ata omer alai, what you had said to me back then, Ha'al esa'am hazeh, brings people up, V'ata lo hodatani, Eis asher tishalach imi. You didn't say at that time who's coming with, who's going to be accompanying us. V'ata marta yidaticha b'shem gam v'tasichin beinecha. And you said, Moshe says to Hashem, and you said to me back then that you'll make me famous, I guess, my name will be known, but you also said that I found chen in your eyes. That's where Moshe starts. You've told me that v'tasichin beinecha. Chen implies that you're going to want to live with someone even though they don't necessarily deserve it. So, V'ata, since we've established that I have chen in your eyes, that's Moshe's prelude little story. V'ata, even though matasichin benecha, if that's true, hodeini na estarchecha, I want to know your ways. Ve'idach laman emtachin benecha, and I want to know what it means to find favor in your eyes, what the reward that the consequence that are. Reiki amka goyazeh, I want to see that Taka, the Jewish people, is the people you've chosen. That you're going to stick to us, something like that. V'yomer, so Hashem responds back, Panai yelchu v'hanichosi lach, which literally means, I don't know, my face will go and I will give you rest, which is an ambiguous, a really strange sentence. The Gemara we had yesterday or Thursday had darshan that pasuk to say, Panai yelchu, my face of za'am, my anger will pass. Yelchu, and then v'hanichosi lach, and then will be time to sort of come to some sort of reconciliation. But here, he just says, don't worry, I'm coming with you. That's the Pashup shot. In other words, at least that's one shot, we'll stick that for now. And Moshe is objecting to want to not be escorted by an angel, and Hashem says, no, I'm coming with you. Panay yelchu, me will be coming and give you rest. V'yomer love, im ein panecha lochim al taleni mizeh. Because Moshe, listen, because if you're not coming personally, if your panecha isn't coming with us, so then al taleni mizeh, we're not going forward. We don't want to go. We're not going forward from this point. Don't move us. And how will I know? How am I supposed to know it's really true that you really care about me, that I found chen beinecha, vani v'amecha halo b'lechtecha v'imanu. So okay, now it's important. So how will I know? How can it be known? That we want to know that we have found favor in your eyes, that you will be coming with us. Not only do we demand to know that you're going to come with us, but we want to know that you've Diflinu is made us distinct. Our school says set apart. Yeah? Like nifla, we're extraordinary. Not ordinary, we're extraordinary. Anivam, I think that's the root here. That we're extraordinary relative to the other people of the world, meaning that you will have Yeshchina with us and not with them. Ashel Pnei Ha'adama, that are opposed to everyone else in the world. So in that sentence, that pasuk, we have two requests. That's the Gemara is going to focus on for a moment. It's going to say, first of all, we want you to come with us, and second of all, we want you to just be with us, there's Yeshchina, and not with everybody else, the second request. V'yomer Hashem el Moshe, gam es hadavar hazeh, asher divarta eseh. Hashem says, fine, I agree to those two requests. I'll come with you, and I will rest exclusively on the Jews as opposed to the others. Because you have indeed found favor in my eyes, chen, and I've known you by name, whatever that means. Not for me. I've known you. Hashem says, I know you very well. We've come to know, have a very special relationship, and because of that, I'm going to respond to you and give you your request. The Yomar, so now Moshe responds back, okay, he sees he's on a roll. So he says, Harini na es kvodecha, like he ups ante. Oh yeah, like while he's getting all these yeses, so he says, okay, please also show me your kavod, show me your essence, like that. Show me your glory. Yeah, Rashi says, Ra Moshe shahaya eis ratzon. Moshe saw this was a good time to ask questions, ask requests, because Hashem is saying yes. Udavar mekubalim, as words are being answered. V'hosik lishol, so you then add one more request. There are also Maris Kvoda, to show him also his glory. In human psychology, it's the same way, you know. My first job was as a knife salesman, a door-to-door knife salesman. So that they gave this like very manipulative script to execute on the poor victim on the other side of the door. But basically the gist of it was, you asked them like, basically like, it was 7 questions in sequence where the answer is yes. They're for sure going to say yes. Like, do you live here? Like that's how it starts. Like it's set up so that they can say yes. And then it's like essentially, so like, you know, you're going to buy my knives essentially, and they're in that mode. So it sounds a little funny and it's manipulative, but it's actually really true. Like once a person's in like a yes mode, then it's effective. And you actually will see the telemarketers on their phone, they start with the same questions. They ask you the yes questions. So Hashem was in a yes mode, I guess. So Moshe wanted to tap into that. I don't know, I'm not suggesting that Hashem's psychology is like human psychology. I'm just saying it's an anecdotal, interesting point that it works for people too. V'yomer, so Hashem responds back, Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha. Hard to translate. I will pass all my goodness before you. It's the same thing. V'karasi v'shem Hashem lefanecha. I'll call out with the Shem Hashem before you. V'chanosi es asher achon. This is a little strange, but it means like I will have chen on whoever I feel like having chen on. V'rechamti es asher erachem, and I'll have mercy on whoever I have mercy on. Rachman is like it's like a step down. Chen is like you don't deserve it, I'll give it to you anyways. That is like Rachman also, but Rachman is like you've done something bad, and yet I'm not going to punish you. It's like on the other side. Like when you say in your benching, the chen v'chesed v'rachman, the chen means we don't deserve it, and but you give it to us anyways. Like chen, because you.
It's Rachman.
Extra, no, that's what I'm saying. So chen is like we didn't do anything to deserve it, and yet you're giving it anyways. Chesed means that a person is moved to give, independent of the recipient. Doesn't matter worthy or not worthy. I'm a Baal Chesed. I want to give. I'm sitting in my tent, waiting for a victim of my Chesed. I'm waiting for someone to pass by so I can do good to them. I don't care what they need and you know what I'm saying. The point is that they're good or bad. I'm just looking for what they need and I'm going to fill it. That's Chesed. Racham is like once already like forget not doing something good to deserve it. You've done plenty to deserve not to get it. But I'll have Racham anyways and have pity on you, whatever, mercy on you, and give it to you anyways. That's the thing. Anyways, so Hashem says, I'll have chen whoever I feel like I'm a chen on, and I'll have Rachman whoever I as a share Rachman, whoever I have Rachman on. Whatever that means, too many things to talk about. But anyways, V'yomer lo tuchel erosas panai, Hashem says, but you gotta know, you won't be able to see my face. Ki lo yire'eni ha'adam b'chai, a person can't see me and live. V'yomer Hashem, hine makam iti v'nitzavta al hatzur. There's another place here that's with me, I'll place you in the rock, via bavor kvodi, as my kavod passes on by, v'samticha v'nikras hatzur, I'll stick you in like the crevice, cleft of the rock. The sakosi kapai, I'll like cover you with my hand. Alecha ad avri, until I pass by. We got like a lot of things happening here. But that's the plan. Fine. Vasirosi es kapai. Then once I've passed and I've passed you, I'll take off my hand, so to speak. V'reis es achora, you'll see my back. Ufanai, but my face, which passed by first, you were covered in the cleft, couldn't see. Lo yireu, you will not see. That's the story. That's the part of that word, that pressure. So we can keep it aside here. So the Gemara, because we'll see, we're going to downfall around these issues. But the Memor starts out by saying, Rabbi Yosi, on line 35, Shlosh Devar Bikesh Moshe Melifnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe requested 3 things, which we saw. The Gemara will review in a second. V'nasan, and according to this Tana, anyways, Hashem granted all 3 requests. First of all, Bikesh Tishra Shechina al Yisrael. The first request was that Moshe wanted the Shekhinah to be on the Jewish people, and V'nasan lo, And Hashem did grant that, of course. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, "V'halo v'leftecha imanu," like, which means, like, unless you're coming with us, don't take us from this point. So we want your Shekhinah with us. That's understanding. And Hashem granted that, and they marched on, of course. Second of all, bikesh lo tishra Shechina al odei kochavim. The second request was that Hashem shouldn't have any others. I saw before I should speak out. The fear is like that after the Chait, maybe like there could be a plan B or an alternate Yisrael or something. So Moshe wants to nip that in the bud and say, no, it's us and no one else. And V'nasalno, Hashem agreed to that too. Shne'emar, the pasuk where he requested it was V'niflinu ani v'amcha, like make me and your people distinct. I'm not sure what the grammar of Niflinu now, I don't think about it. I said before Nifla, like Pella. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Anyways, it definitely means to make us distinct. It's special. Extraordinary. I'm just not sure about the grammar. In any case, third of all, Bikesh Lahodio Durachav, Shalakash Baruchu. The third thing that Moshe requests for is he wanted to know Hashem's derech, the way Hashem, remember the whole parak, the whole daf, some of them, how this Hashem, the way Hashem runs the world. So what more relevant topic than Moshe Rabbeinu asking very specifically how Hashem is manning the world? He wanted the derech of Hashem. But Nasanlo, and Hashem agreed to that also. Shnei Amar, the pasuk says, "V'hodi ani na es derachecha." Show me, please, your derech, where you're manning the world. So now the Gemara speaks. Amar l'fan of Rabbanu Shalom. He said before him, Hashem, quote, Rabbanu Shalom, God. L'pnei ma yesh tzadik v'ra tov lo v'yesh tzadik v'ra lo. This is Hashem's derech. He wants to know. So the first 2 points is they came away. The Gemara spoke on the third point, Hashem's derech, the way Hashem is manning the world. Moshe wants to know, and specifically what he asked was for Borush Olam, why is it that there's a tzaddik v'tov lo and there's a tzaddik v'ra lo? Some tzaddikim have a good and some tzaddikim have a bad. I believe that this is there's quite a bit of tension between Moshe Rabbeinu and his way of going to Hashem and Bilam as like the paragon of the Goyim's prophets. That's why we have Vayikra, we just read it yesterday, that little small aleph, because Moshe wanted to not have aleph inside, he wanted to like Vikara like Bilam, but that's like the Lashon Peri. I told you that Bilam's whole thing was that this world is random or has a random element to it. Hence he could tap into that random elements of the moments Hashem's angry and so on. But here it's Vayikra, it's Lashon Chiba, like not Hashem called out, not carry, not happenstance, but actually very intentional. That's over there. So here kind of the same thing's happening, that Moshe is saying the whole, in terms of the world, people's reward and punishment in this world, it seems random. Right? It seems like there's tzaddikim who have a good, tzaddikim who have a bad. It doesn't make sense. Like, before I speak out, it could have just asked the straightforward question, which is, why are tzaddikim having it bad? Why is it tzaddik v'ra lo? It doesn't say that, because maybe the answer would be, Hashem wants people to suffer in this world so they can earn better olam haba. But if that's true, so then why are there tzaddikim that have good? Like, you can't have it both ways.
Do we know if Moshe had anything specific in mind here? Why was he
Yes. What do you mean?
No, why was he asking that question? Was there something?
That's the big question. That's why. I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question, but my educated guess, if you will, is like, when I was a Kiru rabbi back in London, so I used to say that there actually is only one good question. Like every other question that people ask, there's an answer to, and no good conscience really. But this remains like a real big theological problem. The big question, like you look around, you see good people, bad things happening to them, and bad people, good things happening to them, and you say, well, how can Hashem let that happen? Like where was God?
I understand that, but what was happening then that made him ask that question?
Well, I guess I'm speculating. I wasn't there, but this is the way I'm understanding the story. The way I'm trying to convey it to you is, and I hope it's true, is Moshe was not talking about this. Moshe was talking about he wants Hashem to return to Jewish people and have exclusivity in terms of that relationship. When Hashem says yes, Moshe played the don't have pain in your eyes card, and Hashem says that yes you do, yes you do, yes you do. So Moshe says, oh, just one more thing. I really have always wanted to know the big question: why do bad things happen to good people? Because that is the only question that probably, I don't know, so to speak, the only question that is like persists. Like that's the faith linchpin, right? everything, you can have every answer to every kasha, every question. But still, you look around and say, listen, the bottom line is like, some poor lady goes to sleep keeping Shabbos and her 7 children die overnight. Like, where was Hashem? How could let that happen? Like, and whatever answer you give, you're going to say, yeah, but how could Hashem let that happen? Right? Look, for all I know, I'll say anything I'm saying, for all you know that she was a Russian, they all deserved it. But there's too many stories that we know that people weren't ostensibly that way, and it still happened. So it bothers. Like, where is Hashem? And that's Moshe's question. It seems there's an element of randomness here. You're running the show, how can you let bad things happen to good people? And that doesn't make sense. Like, that's the big question that every person in the really should struggle with. But so Moshe, I'm just speaking out, Moshe didn't answer that question. He didn't ask, why do bad things happen to good people? He said, why do good things happen to good people, and good things happen to... Like, some good people have a good, and some good people have a bad. So that's why I'm making the question sharper, and saying, I think it's sharper, and saying where's the order in the system? If you're running the show, I want to understand, like, how does the whole system work? Because I'm looking at the whole topic of this page as being Hanhag is Hashem in the Olam, Hashem has a moment of anger, there's elements of ostensible randomness, and Moshe Rabbeinu it's not about one single thought, but as the issues are being grappled with around the page, Moshe is saying, listen, you run the world, and of course Moshe believes Hashem run the world, like he spoke to him, and he knew it, and he existed in the Makos, that's obvious. But he says, so where's the order of the system? Why is some people having a good and some people having a bad, and they both Hashem Spirit Tzaddikim? That's why I'm reading the Kasha, and not just one side. No. Yeah, no, it's just speaking up, repeating myself, but just making sure it's clear. Moshe could have said, why do bad things happen to good people? Because then Hashem could have said, well, they need to get purged of their sins and get the Olam Haba, which is true. But that doesn't answer the random elements. What about the other tzaddikim that are equally tzaddik and they aren't having suffering? And some people lose their kids and it doesn't add up. That's bothering Moshe. Yeah.
I feel like almost he's asking the previous question again in a different way. Like he said, show me your glory, like show me how things work. And Hashem said, I can't show you the front, like how things happen, but I can show you the back, how things happen. But so Moshe's like, okay. Then he asked this question, like in another way, like another round.
So I think you're wrong, but you're right. In other words, what the Gemara is doing is it's saying, Moshe asked one question, like one which is, show me your glory or your derech, and then the Gemara is saying, what does that mean? What does he want to see? He wants to know this question. The question that's bothering Moshe is, how are you monitoring the world if you see there's this, some people have a good, some people have a bad, and for no good reason? That's his question. And the answer is going to be...
It's a similar question in a way.
No. The Gemara is just saying that was his question. The Gemara is saying, when Moshe asked, show me your glory or show me your derech, what is that supposed to mean? And what was Moshe trying to see? So the Gemara is saying, he wanted to know the answer to this question. And the answer is going to be, well, I can't show you my face and my back. And one answer is that, we'll get back to it.
Can't we just say that we don't see the whole picture? It's simple as that. So maybe what happened to this lady was ultimately good, but we don't see the whole...
Maybe we have to see
indeed, for sure, it's true, but Moshe wants to know, like, I want to see it. I want to see
He wants to see the whole picture.
Yeah.
He wants to understand why.
I want to understand why.
He wants to understand the...
Once you're telling me, because in the context of the verses there, Moshe was saying, Hashem says, I'm with you, and I promise you, for the beginning I'll be with you. So Moshe says, what does that mean? Like, what is the implications? What good does it do if you're with us if bad things happen to people, or whatever? I want to see the whole picture. Not that he didn't have faith in Hashem or anything like that, obviously. But I think you turn the question on its head and say, like, the Psukim and the Gemara are comfortable in admitting and illustrating, or whatever the word is, that, like, Moshe Rabbeinu himself, who was like the Navi par excellence, who, like, even before this event already knew Hashem more than anybody knew Hashem. Now he's going to know Hashem even more, whatever that means. But even that, he still was bothered by the question of why are bad things happening to good people. I'm making it more philosophical instead of the random angle, but the suffering angle is still there. Of course he believes it's just, but it's still hard to swallow. Moshe is saying, I want to see the bigger picture, because even though I accept it, I don't understand it. Right? That's where Moshe is at. So Hashem, the Psukim said of like can'ts. I can show you you can't see my panan, which we'll have to understand in a second. But the Gemara is just fleshing out the request to see Hashem's derech is the question of why some tzaddik get it tov, some tzaddik can get it ra. And the converse also, Moshe wants to know of Hashem. Yesh rasha b'tov lo, yesh rasha b'rado. Some Rishayim have it bad, some Rishayim have it good. So or I guess some Rishayim have it good, some Rishayim have it bad. So again, there's this, doesn't, like, where's the system here? How does it all work? I don't get it, says Moshe Rabbeinu. Amar lo, Moshe tzadik v'tov lo. Hashem says Moshe. The Gemara is narrating the point, like as if it were a midrash. The Gemara is speaking what happened over there. Tzadik v'tov lo, when you have a tzadik and good things happen to him, that's a tzadik ben tzadik. He's the tzadik who's the son of a tzadik. And a tzadik v'ralo, when a tzadik is something bad happening to him, that's a tzadik ben rasha. He's a tzadik, but his father wasn't a tzadik. He was a rasha. And a rasha v'tov lo, that's a rasha ben rasha. Sorry, rasha v'tov lo, that's a rasha ben tzadik, and a rasha v'ralo is a rasha ben rasha. The next two dots here just cross them out. I don't know if they're doing it. So now, I mean, period. Like, so I guess if you take the two dots seriously, just some editor. The point is, and line 40, yeah. The point is like that's his answer. End the discussion. But the Gemara is like not done. The Gemara says, Amar Mar. Wait a second. Like, we're gonna pick on this point. You're trying to say tzadik v'tovlo is a tzadik ben tzadik, and a tzadik v'ralo is a tzadik ben rasha. You're trying to tell me that the reason why some tzaddikim have it bad is because their fathers were bad? Any? Is that really true? V'ha ksiv, one pasuk, like we had said elsewhere, that one pasuk says, Hakod avon avos al banim. One verse says, Hashem will visit, like the iniquity or whatever, the iniquity means like the bad activity, bad actions of the fathers on the children, which implies taka, if you're a child and you're a tzaddik, but your father's a rasha, you're going to get it anyways, like we said. But uksiv, another pasuk says, Uvanu yamusu al avos. Another pasuk says that children will not die, suffer the consequences of what their fathers had did. So one second, which one is it? V'ramina. I said Rabbi, we threw them together. We threw the two psukim in the ring. Which one is it? Either children suffer the consequences of their parents, or they don't suffer the consequences of their parents. Which one is it? Ramina and Karai Ahadadi. We threw the psukim together. Umashninan, and we answer to explain it, lo kasha. The two psukim are not in contradiction. Ha kisha ochsin ma'asav osayim b'yadayim. The guy who's punished for his father's actions is because he just perpetuated them. Literally, he holds the actions of his father in his hand. The father was a avodah zarah, and so was the son. So like the son gets a double whack.
So he learns from his father and does it himself.
Right, and he stuck to it. So now like all the misery that his father had coming to him also can get piled on the kid. But if the kid didn't follow his father's footsteps, if a child does tshuva, so he won't suffer the consequences of his father's actions. So that's the answer. That's an understanding of the Gemara, and therefore it says. So that's the tzaddik ben tzaddik that we're talking about here. That has good is because his father was good. The tzaddik ben rasha was bad, even though he's a rasha. Sorry. Here the Gemara says, if he's a tzaddik ben rasha, he shouldn't get punished, right? Because he's not his father, he doesn't hold on to his father's ways. If that's true, so the Gemara said before that the tzaddik ben rasha is the guy who has bad things happen to him, so we're adding up, right? We're resolving saying that tzaddikim aren't getting punished for their father's acts. So how could the answer of a tzaddik v'ralo be he's a tzaddik ben rasha? I should point out, by the way, that the Zohar understands when you say tzaddik ben rasha, what you mean is like reincarnated, like a Gilgal. So that's a little different. It's just, you have to read the words, understanding meaning like a Gilgal instead of parents. But anyways, it does change it, but it doesn't turn it upside down.
So Galgal, he's a tzaddik who's a Gilgal from Russia?
Right.
So
in his previous life he was a rasha, but now he's a tzaddik. He's not going to have to suffer the consequences of his previous life.
So according to the Zohar, you really never know. You won't know.
Yeah, you'll never know.
You'll never.
And anyways, you'll never know because who knows what the father, what they really did.
Yeah, that's true.
You're always never knowing. But the fact that we can't know doesn't mean there isn't a logic behind on the other side of the curtain. And so we're just explaining the logic. So there's two possible logics here. One logic is, the first approach, which we're rejecting now, but the first approach was, you still have to suffer the consequences of your ancestors' activities. We reject that by saying, no, you won't. But until that's the kasha. Now we'll get, the next word is Ella. Ella, I told you, means we throw the baby on the bathwater and start from scratch. But before we get there, I'm just saying, the way you'd read the Gemara up to now is that the first answer was, as I read it to you, was if your ancestors were bad, you have to suffer the consequences too. Other version is, if you were bad in previous Gilgul, you still have the consequences too. There's two different sets of mechanics. You're speaking it out.
So you expect the former, the immortal, to have been punished. They came from,
Right, so in the first set of logic, first approach, they would be punished. Like Aaron himself, terrible. But then we answered, well, if you abandon the ways of your forebears, then you're in the clear. And so now that's the kasha. So now we're going to have to, the Gemara is going to say Ella, and I was going to throw it away. Like we're clearing the etch-a-sketch, we're starting from scratch. Go back to the original question with the new answer. The original question was, why do some people, good people suffer, and some good people prosper? We're throwing out the issue of who the father was, or who the previous Gilgul, previous incarnation was, because we'd resolved that if you change your ways, if you're tzaddik, even if you're a ben Rasha, it wouldn't matter. So therefore, Ella, you're right. Clearing the slate, and we're getting a new answer here. So the Gemara says Ella. Again, we're on line 42. Ella hachi ka'amar lei. This is what he said to him. Rather, tzaddik v'tovlo is tzaddik gamor. If a person is a tzaddik and he has good happen to him, it's because he's righteous through and through. Tzaddik v'ralo, if he's a tzaddik but he has bad things happening to him, it's because he's a tzaddik she'eno gamor. He's a tzaddik but not totally righteous, and he has things he's done wrong. And as the Hashem famously explains, and others too, that means that whatever he's going to get, since he's going to Olam Haba, whatever things he has to suffer for, he suffers it here instead of there. And then it is just a partial answer. And you're not going to be, by these three lines of Gemara, you're not going to solve all your,
Question.
theodicy is a question of justice, theodicic question, whatever. Anyways, Rasha B'tovlo, Rasha She'eno Gamor, the Rasha who has some good things is getting rewarded in this world for his certain good things, and the Rasha who has it totally bad is a Rasha Gamor. That's a Rasha B'ra. Period. Now, the Gemara is already had enough of this discussion in a way. That core discussion, which is Tzaddik V'ralo, you'll have to explore it elsewhere. If you remember, I said in my first day more or less, the Gemara is very little discussion about theology, and I know Moshe got very upset. I said, well, maybe Dav Vav and Dav Zayin. And that's it. That's pretty much the discussion. We're moving on. We're moving on with all your many, many questions unanswered. That's the Gemara is moving on. But anyways, we're not totally done, but we're moving on. So now the Gemara says at this point, this whole structure we set up is a machlokas because our original proposition was Moshe requested three things and Hashem granted them. Now we're going to say, well, by the way, that's actually machlokas because according to Meir, Moshe requested three things and only two got answered. So you see, we're just sidestepping away from the issue now, and we're going to that point. But that's how it is. Davar Meir. Davar Meir, Shtayim Nasnu Lo, Hashem granted two of his requests, Va'achas Lo Nasnu Lo, but one request he did not grant. Shneimar, the pasuk says, V'chanichosi es asher achon, I will, have chen to whoever I feel like I'm a chen to, Afal pi she'eno hagun, even though he's not worthy. V'rechamti es asher erachem, Afal pi she'eno hagun. I'll have Rahman whoever I feel like, even though he's not hagun. So the way I'm reading this, I guess for how I'm reading it, I think the Pasha way of reading it first is just simply saying that Hashem didn't fulfill his request in full. Because he didn't show his full face, he just said you can't live in, that's the Pasuk says, so you can't really see my face. Hashem says, I'm sorry to say, so I'll just give you some
Partial
it's like a second best, silver medal, and you'll see my back at least. The way I'm reading it, but when I'm saying I because it's just me. I will step down if someone has a better read. But if the issue is the way I want to read it, that it's Moshe demanding a system and he's objecting to the randomness of it, and he wants how Hashem is manning the world. So as soon as Hashem says, listen, at the end of the day, I'll be marachem to her, I'll be marachem to her, and have chen to her, whoever I feel like it. You're back to total randomness as far as human being is concerned, right? Hashem says, I'll do whatever I feel like. So then, if Moshe's request is, I want to understand how you run the world, and Hashem says, I do whatever that guy please. So then, that's not getting a partial, that's getting FS. It's much stronger, if you ask me. But that's just me. I think, I don't read the article carefully to see if they learn different, but I'm sure they learn different. I'm sure they learn it's just a partial, yeah.
I thought the classic answer to the question of why do bad things happen to good, or why do bad things happen to good people,
is Hashem is paying it back in this world so that if it's for the bears, so that you can have
Right.
So where does that come from? It doesn't seem to be coming from the Gemara.
Oh, no, it is coming from the Gemara. That's this. The Gemara didn't speak it out. The Gemara said in one sentence. He said, in other words, the Gemara, all it said is, you want to know why some tzaddikim have it bad in this world? Like that one of the quarter. It's because they're tzaddikim, but they're not totally tzaddikim. So they have to suffer in this world, I'm putting those words there, to clear up those few bad things when they get to heaven. It's all gravy. That's the word that's coming from this Gemara here.
When Hashem says, you can see my back, isn't that implied through looking back in history? You
So now we're not there yet. Now we're going to now discuss that point. Yeah, but so in some, let's get there. We're 1 second away. But he just said, you can see my back and my front you can't. So let's at least get to the Gemara and then we can discuss this stuff here. So, Tana Mishmeit, it was 1% that's basically. Oh, yeah, anyways. Tana Mishmeit Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Chacham Le'Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, this is how the Gemara is explaining the back, not the front. But so I want to see it first. Oh gosh. I'm looking at the time, I'm wondering if we have enough time. No, okay, we will pause here and we will at least put your explanation, John's explanation on the table, because he said it. We didn't mention here about the back, but the pasuk said the back. So there's one understanding of that, which is very nice, pasuk, which is when you, like, all our understanding of Hashem is always not ahead of the game, but in the rear view mirror. In other words, before it happens, like you can't figure out anything. But after it happens, you can always say, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense why it happened. That's how life always is like that. And it's an amazing contradiction, right? Because once it's happened, you figure like, yeah, it couldn't have been any other way. It's so obvious. And all the pundits are saying, but yesterday, before the elections happened, everyone says, everyone has totally no idea what's going to happen. And everyone has different opinions. But the second afterwards, yeah, of course it's why it happened. Everyone sees, wait, that's how Hashem runs the world. That's one explanation front and back. More tomorrow, as Hashem. So.
And then tomorrow's